Chapter 5. March to Manzikert. Spring, 1071. Deep within Anatolia. Romanus IV Diogenes, born in Byzantine Cappadocia and in his 30s, is of relatively young age. Since Basil II, there has been no great general and emperor until now. He surveys the forces marching with him with a sense of pride and confidence. Never has such a large contingent of Byzantines taken on the Muslims since the annihilation at Yarmouk centuries ago. Muslim sources give an account of a force 200,000 strong. Only Allah knows how many exactly are marching over the Anatolian plains toward the city of Sebastia. Now known as Sivas in eastern Turkey, it would be the base from which Romanus would plan the next phase of his assault on Muslim lands. Fighting Turks is not new to Romanus. He has proven himself to be a great military leader by repelling the devastating invasions of the Pecheneg and Uz-Turkic tribes early in his career. Seljuk raids into Anatolia were getting more frequent and brutal, forcing the Patriarch of Constantinople to push for Romanus' election as emperor in 1067. The empire needed a strong military man at its helm who could secure the Eastern Front against the marauding Turks. A year after his anointment, he campaigned against the Turkic tribes in Anatolia, hoping to drive the Turks back into Khorasan. The results were mixed. Romanus retreated to Constantinople where he needed to regroup and re-strategize. That winter would be spent training new corps in light of a fresh upcoming campaign. Lesson learned. This time, when Romanus marched out with the Byzantines in March of 1071, things would be different. Along with the native Byzantine troops, he had with him thousands of his battle-hardened elite troops, the imperial tagmata, as well as troops gathered from provincial armies throughout Syria and Anatolia. His earlier campaign had taught him the need to employ professional forces from native Armenians, Georgians, Rus, Khazars, and Bulgars. Sizable Turkic Oghuz and Pecheneg tribes were involved as well. This was a multinational contingent. The beasts of burden and their haul were just as impressive. Thousands of animals dragging carts with innumerable weapons and supplies. There were mangonels or catapults for when sieges were to be laid, larger than any seen in this part of the world. And then there was also the war chest. Hundreds of thousands of gold dinars, silk dresses, gold artifacts, and jewelry. As a Muslim chronicler, Al-Husseini put it, Byzantium threw its own lifeblood at the Sultan, and the earth brought forth burdens of men and equipment. This was both a preparation for war and a celebration all in one. Such was the confidence. In the summer month of June, Romanus marched into Theodosiopolis with his army in an offensive formation. Here he would resupply and rest. But what exactly was his plan? For years, Turkic raids into Byzantine Anatolia had caused much havoc. Romanus needed to secure this eastern frontier once and for all. A heavy defeat of Alp Arslan's men, as well as the retaking of the key defensive cities of Manzikert and Alat, would surely achieve this. Seljuk victories a few years earlier at these two cities did not go down well with the Byzantines. They were key to Byzantine defensive strategy to the east. Losing them would allow increasingly more incursions by ravaging horsemen. There were also political considerations. Politics is but a form of war, with a little less bloodshed. The position of emperor was eyed by many of his rivals, especially from the family of Dukas. A significant victory would greatly enhance his status and shatter any aspirations those troublesome Dukas had to the throne. So far, the march had been relatively uneventful. The next phase would take them deeper into enemy territory. Romanus called for another council. A decision needed to be made. fight them in Byzantine territory or take the battle to their doorstep. He wanted to make sure that everyone was clear and in tune with his own intentions. But what was Alp-Arslan up to in the first place? After all, intelligence plays a key role in warfare. It helps determine the strategy and timing of the assault. Everything was pointing towards a failing and cowardly enemy. Intelligence reports suggested that Alp-Arslan was routed in Aleppo and fleeing towards Baghdad. In addition, Romanus was fully aware that the Muslim army had to cross the Euphrates River to get anywhere close to the Byzantine force. The river would be flooding at the time. There was no way the Muslims could cross this river without boats. As far as Romanus could deduce, the morale of Alp-Arslan's men was shattered, and they were geographically isolated. And even if they did turn up, the Byzantines would crush them, based on sheer numbers alone. The council was supremely confident. Voices of caution were swept aside as the younger were emboldened, urging Romanus to strike deep into the Muslim heartland and drive the pesky Turks into the mountains for good. It was time for rejoicing with food and wine. Members of the council began to divide up the Muslim lands amongst themselves, each laying claim in advance as to what they would be governing. However, the Caliph would be left alone as a merciful gesture from the Byzantine emperor. The celebrations continued deep into the night. None dared to question if they were premature.